A while ago I made a video about illiteracy, and one of the comments on the video was that the opening statistics were incredibly depressing, even for me. 10% of Americans believe that the Earth is possibly flat. 12% of Americans believe that the US government is mandating fluorescent light bulbs because they make people easier to control. 35% of Americans believe that the FDA and the drug companies in America are sitting on the cure to cancer. And now, here's some more words flying at you to nauseate and annoy.
Upward, not forward, and always twirling, twirling, twirling towards freedom.
Or is it catching him in bed with a goblin? And then the final scale, is he going to marry a goblin?
Research from the University of Chicago has found that 50% of Americans believe in at least one conspiracy theory, and it's not an American phenomenon. It's similar across Europe, and in the UK, one study has the rate at 60%. A 2022 study published in the journal PLOS ONE sought to determine whether belief in conspiracy theories has been on the rise, particularly in the age of the internet and social media, by comparing surveys from the last 50 years. What they found is that belief in conspiracy theories is relatively stable over time. Some go up and some go down, and they vary by region and culture, but overall there has been a very slight decrease in conspiracy theory beliefs. A conspiracy theory is an explanation for an event or circumstance which posits that a group of usually powerful people are working together in secret, usually for nefarious and malevolent purposes, and for their own benefit and against the common good, even though other, more plausible explanations exist. A conspiracy theory is different from just a conspiracy, which refers to any secretive plan among two or more people. Real conspiracies have existed throughout history. You can't tell me there was no conspiracy to get James Corden famous. It just doesn't make sense. Certain key elements separate conspiracies from conspiracy theories. Generally, a conspiracy theory is a very specific hypothesis for explaining complicated events or circumstances. They tend to rely on circular reasoning, a well-defined bad guy, and are, usually, contradictory to established facts and established mainstream consensus about events as determined by experts in relevant fields. Ignoring or rejecting evidence is the real critical part.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah?
If they don't give me bail, they take me straight to prison, right?
A 2018 analysis published in the journal Perspectives on Psychological Science identified 5 critical ingredients of conspiracy theories. 1. An assumption of how people, objects, or events are causally interconnected. In other words, there is always a hypothesized pattern. 2. The stipulation that plans of alleged conspirators are deliberate and intentional. 3. A conspiracy theory always involves a group of people working in conjunction. 4. Conspiracy theories always contain an element of threat, where the goals of the conspirators are harmful or deceptive. And 5. Conspiracy theories always contain an element of secrecy. I would also add that conspiracy theories usually, but not always, revolve around a social group that is different from the conspiracy theory believer. In other words, people tend to believe conspiracies about social groups that they themselves are not a part of. It's unusual, for example, for a Jewish person to believe that all Jewish people are part of a conspiracy to take over the world. It could happen, but generally conspiracy theories revolve around in-group and out-group relations. As an example, it's pretty well established that the George W. Bush administration lied, or at least misled, the public about the existence of WMDs in Iraq. You could call that a conspiracy. But conspiracy theories about 9/11 are much more specific and contrary to established facts. The most popular version is that the collapse of the Twin Towers and Building 7 were controlled demolitions planned by the US government to coincide with the planes hitting the towers, which they also planned, in order to simulate a terrorist attack for the purpose of invading Iraq to get their oil. That's a general summary. There are many variations of the theory, which are highly detailed and contrary to the evidence. Ultimately, which is more likely? That a massive conspiracy involving thousands of people across multiple levels of government and the military, coordinated in a plan with thousands of moving parts across different businesses and government agencies all over the country, in order to kill American citizens and citizens from other countries for the benefit of a handful of companies, and to this day nobody has come forward to speak about their involvement. Or that the history of the US and the Middle East is long and complicated, and a terrorist attack happened and some people and companies didn't let a good crisis go to waste when they could be making money from it. But they didn't cause it. I think that some conspiracy theories, in and of themselves, are relatively harmless. If you believe that aliens are making contact with people on Earth and the US government is covering it up, I'm not sure if those beliefs are really doing tangible damage. You could argue that they encourage paranoid thinking, distrust in government, or poor skills in pattern recognition. But I think you could also argue the converse, that people with those traits are already drawn to conspiracy theories. So you could make an argument that these beliefs aren't doing much harm. No flat earthers have fallen off the edge of the world. Well, none we know about. But other conspiracy theories can pose a genuine, serious threat of harm. Conspiracy theories involving distrust of medicine are an obvious example, wherein people may forego medical care or seek out dangerous alternatives. In the summer of this year, a trend emerged on TikTok called the borax conspiracy. The belief that borax, a toxic chemical used in laundry detergent and insect killers, has various healing properties when ingested or applied to skin. Proponents argue that borax can cure diseases like arthritis and osteoporosis and protect you from dangers like chemtrails, and that Big Pharma is hiding the truth about borax in order to keep selling pharmaceuticals for illnesses that borax can cure. So various TikTok and Facebook groups exist where people advise each other to mix borax into their beverages and drink it, or to soak in baths full of it. And this isn't the first time conspiracy theorists have latched onto borax. During the COVID-19 pandemic, anti-vax groups on social media were spreading the idea that you could bathe in borax in order to undo the COVID vaccine, or to remove nanotechnologies or toxins that were secretly put in the vaccine. Other conspiracy theories can be dangerous in the way they target specific groups and could potentially lead to violence. For example, on October the 27th, 2018, a man walked into the Tree of Life synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, shouting, "All Jews must die," before opening fire and killing 11 people. His social media activity indicated that he was a believer in a number of anti-Semitic conspiracies, including the white replacement theory and several involving George Soros. Always with the George Soros.
Are they suggesting these are anti-Semitic slurs? If I want to say Jew, I'll say Jew.
Now, these are pretty extreme examples of the dangers of conspiracy theories, but I think the root causes of conspiratorial thinking are what really matters. Things that can make people susceptible to not believing in just one conspiracy theory, but many. Research shows that belief in one conspiracy theory is an excellent predictor of belief in other unrelated conspiracy theories, suggesting there are common factors at play that makes some people more susceptible than others. So, what makes people susceptible? There appear to be a number of cognitive, social, cultural, political, and historical factors involved. As ever, it's complicated. I should coin that. One study from HAL Open Science links the prevalence of conspiracy theory believers in the West with the level of democracy, the unemployment rate, and the perceived level of public sector corruption in their country or region. Another study from the European Journal of Social Psychology links conspiracy beliefs with economic outlook. One hypothesis regarding belief in conspiracy theories is that our evolutionary background may predispose us to belief versus non-belief in general. In short, we may be predisposed toward looking for patterns and seeing malevolent agency in negative events because it may have helped our ancestors survive. Imagine being a prehistoric person and hearing a noise in the woods. If you assume the noise came from something dangerous, you're more likely to survive than if you didn't make that assumption. If you assume it's John Voight, because these are, after all, John Voight's woods, but it turns out to just be the wind, you're wrong but still alive. If you assume it's the wind, because it's always the wind, but it does indeed turn out to be John Voight, you're dead. The thinking is that a hyperactive agency detection system could produce belief in conspiracy theories as a byproduct. This tendency to see intentional agency could also make people more sensitive to other forms of supernatural beliefs, which are positively correlated with belief in conspiracy theories. It's not accident, it's not random, it's a conspiracy, or a ghost, or a demon, or God's will, or the spaghetti monster pulling them pasta strings. I think it's also relevant to note that as primates, we have a tendency towards dominance hierarchies, and I think this could play a role as well. It seems to me that people rarely believe conspiracy theories about others within their own social rank, and there's some research to back this up. Lower social class is a predictor of belief in conspiracy theories. Further studies show there could be a link between perceived socioeconomic inequality and a tendency toward conspiracy theories. Another factor, and one of the most well studied, is the link between conspiracy theory belief and certain personality traits and motivations. A 2023 meta-analysis published in the journal Psychological Bulletin looked at data from 170 different studies involving over 158,000 people. The researchers found that a combination of personality traits and motivations are predictive of conspiratorial beliefs. Previous research in the field has tended to focus on the big five personality traits: extroversion, agreeableness, openness to experience, conscientiousness, and neuroticism. The study found that the big five traits have a weaker association with conspiratorial beliefs than previously thought. Instead, the study sought to look at both personality traits and certain social identity motivations. They found people are motivated to believe in conspiracy theories by a need to understand and feel safe in their environment, and a need to feel like the community they identify with is superior to others. They also found that people who strongly believe in conspiracy theories tend to share certain traits: being paranoid, insecure, emotionally volatile, impulsive, suspicious, withdrawn, manipulative, and egocentric are predictive of conspiratorial belief. The bit about being egocentric lines up pretty well with some previous research showing a robust, their word, link between conspiracy theory belief and narcissism. Multiple studies have also indicated that belief in conspiracy theories isn't just about individual narcissism, but a need for collective narcissism, the idea that one's own social group is superior. Studies have also shown a positive correlation between conspiratorial thinking, paranoid ideation, and supernatural or paranormal beliefs. People who believe in conspiracy theories are more likely to be interested in the paranormal and the occult. The evidence suggests that paranoia may be the common denominator between these beliefs. Research has also found a relationship between religiosity and belief in conspiracy theories, though the exact relationship is unclear. Some scholars speculate that both religion and conspiracy theories may fulfill similar psychological needs, like morality, a sense of belonging, and a sense of control. Others think they may be linked because of similar cognitive styles, with both believing there are invisible forces at play, and both addressing the need to understand the world. However, some studies show the association between religiosity and conspiracy theories tends to disappear when controlling for political beliefs. In addition, the links are less concrete in European countries versus the United States, suggesting that religion, conspiracy theories, and politics are more closely related in the United States, possibly because they share more ideological overlap. Republicans and Democrats are both relatively equal in susceptibility. Where they tend to differ is the specific conspiracies they believe. Some conspiracy theories appeal to both sides of the aisle. Others are explicitly partisan in nature and predictably appeal to one side or the other. Some may begin as partisan, but over time start to level out. In the years immediately following 9/11, liberals were more likely than conservatives to believe that 9/11 was an inside job. But in recent years, as 9/11 has faded from immediate political significance, the numbers have shifted and become more symmetrical than they were. There's evidence to suggest that when one political party is in power, the other is more likely to believe in partisan conspiracy theories, further strengthening the idea that group cohesion may play an important role in these beliefs. Another factor is feelings of anxiety and of lack of control. Multiple studies have shown that when people are primed to feel powerless, they are more likely to espouse conspiratorial beliefs. For example, a 2015 study from the Netherlands split college students into 3 groups. The first group was asked to recall and write about a time in their lives when they felt powerless. The second group was asked to write about a time when they felt in control of their lives. The third group were asked about something neutral, what they had for dinner the previous night. Then, the researchers asked all 3 groups how they felt about the construction of a new subway line in Amsterdam that had been plagued with problems. Students who had been primed to feel in control were less likely to agree with conspiracy theories about the subway line, such as the belief that the city council was intentionally stealing money and jeopardizing residents' safety. A variety of other studies have shown similar results. People who feel stressed or anxious are more likely to believe in conspiracy theories. Other studies have indicated that feelings of rejection can make people more conspiratorial. In a Princeton study from 2017, people were put into, again, groups of 3, and asked to write a couple of paragraphs about themselves, and they were told that their writings would be read by the other 2 members of their group, who would use it to determine if they would like to work with them in the future. The researchers then told participants that they had either been rejected or accepted by the group. Those who were told that they had been rejected were more likely to think there was a coordinated conspiracy to reject them, whereas those who were accepted were generally unquestioning of the results. One more factor, one which I think is particularly important, and I bet you're sick of hearing me say that, is the role of illusory pattern perception, which is thought to predict belief in conspiracy theories. People have an automatic tendency to try and make sense of the world by identifying meaningful relationships between stimuli, looking for a pattern. But sometimes there are distortions in this process that make people see patterns which don't exist. For example, completely random sequences typically display less variation and form more clusters than people intuitively expect, which can create the feeling that a pattern exists when it doesn't. And when there is a feeling of uncertainty or a lack of control, the tendency to look for patterns in the noise increases.
All they're getting is the mainstream repeat version of everything.
Do you still think the royal family were shape-shifting lizards?
Yes, I do.
You do?
Yes.
We can see this pattern-seeking behavior in other animals as well. In a famous study by psychologist B.F. Skinner in 1947, hungry pigeons were given food at regular intervals in time. Soon, the pigeons started doing whatever they were doing the last time they got fed. For example, one of the pigeons would turn anti-clockwise in a circle 2 or 3 times, seeming to believe that this meant it would be fed, because it was doing that just before the previous time it was fed. Skinner noted, the experiment might be said to demonstrate a sort of superstition. The bird behaves as if there were a causal relationship between its behavior and the presentation of food, although such a relation is lacking. So we're just pigeons, I guess. I mean, that does make sense. Anyway, a 2018 paper in the European Journal of Social Psychology sought to test the idea that faulty pattern seeking is connected to belief in conspiracy theories, using a series of different studies. In one of the studies, the researchers used the website random.org to produce 100 randomly generated coin tosses, with the only stipulation that 50 tosses would be heads and 50 would be tails. Then, they divided the full sequence into 10 sets of 10 consecutive tosses, and asked participants to rate whether they thought each sequence was fully random or fully determined. Participants were also given a survey that assessed belief in a series of different, well-known conspiracy theories, as well as a fictional conspiracy theory created by the researchers, involving Red Bull using illegal chemicals to get people hooked, and supernatural beliefs as well. They found a significant correlation between seeing patterns in randomly generated coin tosses and belief in both established conspiracy theories and the fictional conspiracy made up for the experiment. However, the researchers note that these findings are restricted by the fact that all of the coin tosses were random, without any base comparison with non-random sequences. So there are different ways to interpret the results. One interpretation is that irrational beliefs, like conspiracy theories, are associated with a generalized tendency to detect patterns, both real and illusory. Another interpretation is that only illusory pattern perception predicts irrational beliefs. The researchers tested these two interpretations with another study using modern art. Some participants were shown a series of paintings by Hungarian artist Victor Vasarely, which most people see as highly structured and with clear patterns. Other participants were shown paintings from American artist Jackson Pollock, which most people tend to see as chaotic and random. The participants were asked whether they thought the paintings were more patterned or more random. The results? People who saw patterns where none existed in the unstructured Pollock paintings were significantly more likely to believe in common conspiracy theories, the fictitious Red Bull conspiracy theory, and also have supernatural beliefs. Recognizing patterns in the highly structured Vasarely paintings, however, was unrelated to belief in either existing or fictitious conspiracy theories, and negatively predicted supernatural beliefs. The results seem to support the idea that only seeing patterns where they don't exist is uniquely predictive of conspiratorial or supernatural beliefs. Interestingly, supernatural beliefs even predicted a decreased capacity to see patterns in the structured paintings. So people who believe in conspiracy theories tend to see patterns where there are none, and people who especially believe in the supernatural tend to not see patterns where patterns do exist. The most popular and enduring conspiracy theory beliefs tend to revolve around important people and events. But the reasons people believe in conspiracies really come down to the desire to make sense of the world, to fit into a particular social or political group, to feel important, to feel in control, to deal with uncertainty and feeling not in control, to deal with anxiety, to protect oneself from perceived threats, especially to identity, and because people who tend to believe in conspiracy theories tend to see patterns where there are none. Personally, I suspect what really makes humans different from other animals is their ability and need to tell stories, usually to explain things, or explain why things are the way they are. Thanks very much for watching. That's the end of the video. You can money me on Patreon, you can face me on Meta, you can X me on Twitter, etc. Ring that bell! Alright, bye-bye. Have a nice life.